Good morning, all. Before we get started, can someone please quickly confirm that my audio, video, and screen, all the three are okay?
Yes, sir, everything is fine.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for the confirmation. One request, as Sar was saying, please keep your microphones on mute until you want to speak. If you want to speak, feel free to, unmute yourself and speak, but otherwise, keep your microphones on mute. Okay, in the last class, we started with agriculture, Indian agriculture, and what are the developments which happened in Indian agriculture. We were discussing that Indian agriculture, when it was independent, majority of Indian GDP was coming from agriculture, and majority of population was coming from agriculture. That is, in economy, the GDP and population both are from dependent on agriculture in 1950s. But today, if you see in 2020, now GDP is not much, only 15%. We tried to reduce this one, but we were not able to reduce this one. That is, majority of population even today are dependent on agriculture and allied activities. Now, this is something a concerning situation for India. On this ground, we have done a good job. Okay, as I told, like share of GDP, agriculture in GDP is good as long as it's much better if you are able to reduce it. Okay, the reason is agriculture is very, you can say, uncontrollable. We cannot actually control as much precisely as in the case of industry. Now you may ask, why not services? Why not services? I gave you some reasons. It requires highly skilled labors. It requires, you can say, yeah, you can say it is very much fragile, volatile. Okay, they can shift from one country to other country. And most importantly, when we talk about services, services would be at the top, always at the top. That means until you have robust agriculture, until you have robust industry, services cannot thrive. Services cannot thrive. That means, for example, see, services, what we talk about services, banking. Now, what is banking produce? Nothing. Banking does not produce anything. Now, banking gives loans to industries or agriculture. So, if agriculture and industry does not thrive, services definitely does not thrive, because these are like foundations. So, services are always dependent on agriculture and industry. For example, insurance sector. Now, what does insurance produce? Nothing. Insurance depends on industrial sector or agricultural sector. There would be industrial loans, industrial insurance, or agricultural insurance. If they themselves fail, agriculture and industry fail, then there would not be any point in services. Okay, like IT or software, ultimately they have to go into industry or agriculture only. If there are challenges here, the same thing would be reflected here. Okay, so this is where we have seen the limitations of services. Okay, definitely services is increasing in India. Now this is also an alarming situation for India, because majority of our economy is dependent not on internal factors but on external factors. External factors. These are all something which are, we should know some broad idea of Indian economy, how it is changing from 1950s to 2020. Okay, so when you are preparing for the post independence history, we prepared something on constitution, something on political developments, something on vulnerable sections. Now, something we will discuss about economy. So that is why when we talk about history, the coverage of history is very vast, very broad, because we cover something here, something here, something here, something here. So this one becomes huge. That is why when we say the history syllabus is very huge. Why is it like that? Because we have to cover constitution, we have to cover polity, we have to cover social justice, we have to cover economy, we have to cover society. Okay, but in post-independence history, this support would be given by your other faculty. Your economy faculty will discuss more about economy, agriculture, problems. Your polity faculty or constitution faculty will discuss more about the evolution of constitution after independence from 1950 to 2020, how it evolved. I hope you know that constitution was also evolving. Okay, there are a lot of amendments, more than 100 amendments which happened to the constitution after its coming into force. Okay, so any questions still here from the last class? Or if you have any other questions related to exam preparation also, you can feel free. We can also quickly discuss on that. If you have any questions, please do not keep it in your mind. Okay, so if you have any questions, concerns, anything related to preparation, okay, not only preparation regarding the career, you can feel free to discuss so that others could also learn from that. That would be helpful for others as well. So let me know any questions or not. Otherwise, we'll move on. I'll take it as a no and move forward. Okay. Then we also discussed about the why India, because why India focused on agriculture initially. The reason is India has a natural advantage. Okay, lot of natural advantage. You can take the help of your geography teacher to understand what are the natural advantages of India. Okay, like in your geography class, you learn more about the monsoons, how monsoons changed the agricultural seasons in India, because majority of our cropping is based on the monsoons. Then we can see the rainfall is also very much adequate, not only from southwest monsoons, but also we give we get rains from northeast monsoons. Then we discussed more about the perennial rivers, like different perennial rivers which are there in India. Okay, Ganga, Brahmaputra, Indus. Then in the peninsular also we have got perennial rivers like Narmada, Godavari, Krishna, Kaveri. Okay, lot of rivers we are having. We are blessed with lot of lakes. Okay, freshwater lakes. Can anyone tell me the largest freshwater lakes in India? At least three. One, two, three.
Kolleru.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, so you should be knowing this one. Okay, at least largest freshwater lake, largest saltwater lakes. Okay, make a list of important lakes in India, water bodies. Okay, anyone wanted to try?
Chilka,
Chilka, I no, it's not a freshwater. It's a
saltwater.
brackish, yeah, brackish water lake.
Ular
Ular
Lake.
Lake in Kashmir.
Okay, very good. Ular Lake, very good. Anything else? So you have to prepare, make a list of lakes in India, and when you're preparing for rivers, make a list of the rivers like Narmada, Ganga, Kaveri. Then the level of questions are: can you name at least four right-hand tributaries or right side tributaries of Ganga? Any four, the right side tributary.
Sun,
Mhm.
Sun,
Sun, okay.
Kosi,
Yamuna.
Hmm.
Kosi,
Okay. Any?
Ghagra. Bhangra. Something.
Okay. Okay. So try to make a list. The left-hand tributaries, right-hand tributaries. Can anyone name the tributaries of Brahmaputra? Hmm. Okay.
Meghana,
Igna. Okay.
Teesta. Lohit.
Very good. Some are saying, some are trying. Okay. So make a list of all this. Maybe in your geography class you learn about all this, but this should be your level of preparation. Okay. So moving on. In short, like we have lot of water bodies, water resources, both from rains as well as water bodies. We do have all this in India. Then the climate is also very much conducive for agricultural production in India. We have a lot of good climatic conditions. We have got tropical climate, semi-tropical climate. Okay, so I hope you know that tropical, semi-tropical climates are very important for agriculture. Okay, so unlike the tundra region, unlike the arid region, okay, unlike the arid regions of here, okay, or grasslands of here, or tundra region of here, India has got very good climate. Like that is what we call as tropical and semi-tropical climate. That means naturally we are blessed. That is where we are focusing on agriculture. Now we also discussed that though the quantity of agriculture in GDP is very less, it is only 15%, but this 15% affects the remaining 85% of GDP. This is something which is very important in to understand in India. Yeah, someone wants to speak. Otherwise, please keep your microphones on mute if you do not intend to speak. Okay. Uh, Thank you. Now, We discussed that the GDP of agriculture in India is only 15%, but this 15% impacts the other 85%. How? The question or the answer is here, because the seed industry, irrigation industry, like for example, if there is an industry which is into making turbines, which is making into dams, which is into cement. Now, this cement industry, the dams, the construction of dams or the construction industry, all this depend on how much irrigation projects we are starting. If there is a problem in agriculture, this would be reflected here also. Okay, like if there are problems in agriculture, who would buy the fertilizer? Okay, the fertilizer industry itself is dependent on agriculture. Like pesticide industry, machinery, farm machinery, the tractors. In automobile sector, farm machinery plays a very important role. Okay, farm machinery. Then new technologies. We are today talking about new technologies. All these are, in short, dependent on agriculture. That means these would go into agriculture. Okay, like for example, if agriculture is here, we require all this. These are what we call it as backward linkages. Like we need seeds, irrigation, fertilizer, pesticides, machinery, new technologies. Now all this would depend on how well agriculture would perform. Okay, in the same way, there would be forward linkages of agriculture. Forward linkages of agriculture. These forward linkages are related to storage, warehouse, transportation, markets, cold storages, warehouses, transportation, food processing. All these are interrelated to agriculture only. That means if there is any year there is a deficit year, or if the crop produce is less, then all these industries, they would not grow properly. All the service sectors which are dependent on agriculture, for example, think of banking. Banking is a service sector, but if agricultural loans are not repaid on time, banking sector suffers. I hope you know the problems of NPA, non-performing assets, which is a major problem in banking sector, and majority of the NPAs come from agricultural loans. I hope you know that. Okay, now,
Yes.
yeah, so if there are problems in agriculture, the same things would be reflected in all this here as well. Mhm. So this is something which we have to understand. Agriculture is central to all the challenges which are there in the Indian economy. Indian economy. Okay, this is something which we have to understand. uh, which we have to understand, like the agriculture, though the amount of GDP is less, qualitatively it plays a very important role in Indian economy even today. Okay, any
Love cages.
any questions? Okay, please keep your microphone on mute if you don't want to speak. Okay, now, yeah, moving on. What is the importance of agriculture? There are a lot of important things which we need to understand related to agriculture. Now this slide is highlights the importance of agriculture on various grounds. Now, on economic parameters, on social, on climate change, or strategic, in all these parameters, agriculture plays a central role. Now, let us have a look at each of this. I hope you are able to read this slide. It is legible for all of you.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
you are able to read the font, right? This is where I wanted to know. Okay, first one is employment. Okay, about 50% of India's population is dependent on agriculture. Okay, now again, please keep your microphones on mute if you don't have anything to speak. Okay, so there is a lot of noise. If you want to speak, you can go ahead. Otherwise, please keep your microphone on mute. Yeah, thanks. Okay, now coming back to this one. So agriculture provides employment to 50% of population. Now, if you want to grow India, or if you want to increase the India's GDP, until you increase the purchasing power of this 50% of population, you cannot increase. For example, if the industry is producing more and more goods, who would buy all these goods? That means the Indian population only. Now, if Indian population itself does not have purchasing power, then all this, whatever the industry has produced, would be waste. That means if you want these industries to have markets, then the population should have purchasing power. Now, if 50% of population are affected by any means, then your industries does not have market. Your services does not have market. Now, if you want more and more markets, you should have the purchasing power here. If there is purchasing power is itself is questioned, then the industries and services would have a setback. Now, this is a very important concern for India because, as I told, about 50% of India's population is dependent on agriculture. That is where, whenever there is, uh, uh, you can say, a deficit year, a monsoon is delayed, or the monsoon is, the rainfall is less. I hope you know something called El Nino is there. Heard of this one? El Nino? El Nino. Can someone tell me what is El Nino?
In oceanic currents,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, but what exactly is it?
Different of different parts of ocean in Indian Ocean specifically.
Okay. From,
Like
yeah,
this,
which countries can you say from where it would come?
Australia
Hmm.
to
Not
uh,
Australia. It comes from the Latin American countries. Okay, it is a oceanic disturbance. If there is a oceanic disturbance, this would affect India's monsoons. So this would generally come every 6 years or 7 years. Whenever there is a El Nino year, this would be affecting India's monsoons. That is why this particular year, every 7 years or 6 years, we can see that there is a dip in India's economy. There is a dip in India's economy every year, every 7 years. This is periodical because if there is any problems in our monsoon, the same thing would be reflected in agriculture. If the agriculture suffers, 50% of population suffers, 50% of population suffers, it means that industry and services both are going to suffer. That is where we can see that a small disturbance in monsoon still impacts the whole of India's economy. I hope you understood the connection. Okay, this is what the employment. Then, if the second challenge is, we were discussing that 50% of GDP and 50% of population dependent. Earlier in 1950s, what happened was the GDP was 60%, and population was something like 80%, 85% was dependent on agriculture. Now, over time we reduced this, but we did not reduce this. What happened means majority of the people started, for example, if this is the land, this land earlier was feeding 10 people, let us take. Now the same land is feeding 20 people. 20 people. That means land remains same whereas population has increased. And the people dependent on this one has also increased. That is, on the same land, more people started depending more and more. And this would lead to inequalities. This would lead to high levels of inequalities in agriculture. That is, if you are targeting to reduce your poverty, you have to start with agriculture. The reason here is majority of our farmers are very poor because majority of the population dependent on very small amount of land, and this share has been very much less. This would show that those people who are in agricultural sector, they are very poor. Those people who are then in services sector, they are in general, they are much more, you can say, higher income levels compared to that of agriculture. But people migrating from here to here is not happening. This is the question, why it is not happening. There are some challenges in making the people migrate from here to here. So that is where we are talking about industrial sector. The middle sector should come, which should be a platform for shifting this much of large amount of population. We were not able to bring people out. This is one of the challenges why there are issues in poverty in India. Now, if you want to go and fix the problems of poverty, you have to always start with agriculture. Now, without fixing the root cause of the problem, okay, you cannot fix the problems of poverty. That is why majority of poverty alleviation programs in India, a lot of poverty alleviation programs, they focus on improving the incomes in agriculture. So I hope you know that doubling farmers income, okay, Niti Aayog, why the government is so much focused on this one, because if you want to make India inclusive development, inclusive development. If you want to ensure that the fruits of development would reach everyone, then you cannot ignore this 50% of population. 50% of population who are living only on 15% of GDP. Simply put, whatever the problems of inequalities which are there in India, they are related to this unequal distribution of population and GDP here as well as here. This is not just an economic challenge, it is also a social challenge. This is leading to social inequalities. Okay, I hope you got the connection between economy and society, because economic disparities are reflected in social spheres. Okay, any questions still here? Then exports. So can anyone tell me India is a net importing country? Okay, net agricultural importing or net agricultural exporting? Do we import in total or export?
Exporting country.
Exporting. Very good. India is a net exporter of agricultural goods. Now, agriculture has the potential. That means, what is the irony is, till today, despite having lot of resources, that means we have huge amounts of natural resources, as I told, we have huge amount of human resources put in agriculture. 50% of India's population. See, 50% itself is huge. Again, 50% of what population? It is not about a small country. Okay, it is like huge population, like 1.3 billion. 50% of 1.3 billion, we are keeping them in agriculture. Still, our complete agricultural production is very less. It is hardly $30 billion, where we have a trade deficit of $100 billion. Every year we are having a trade deficit of $100 billion. Now, agriculture has that potential of bridging this gap. If you want to make India as a net exporter of goods, maybe perhaps a good opportunity India has in the agricultural sector. We have all the natural resources, human resources at place. Only thing we require is some kind of governmental interventions in linking this together and in linking this to agricultural exports. With this, we have majority of our challenges in BOP crisis. I hope you know that there is something called BOP. Can anyone tell me what is BOP?
Business process.
No. Balance of payments. Okay, that is BPO. That is something different. Okay, balance of payments, BOP. Okay, this is balance of payment. That means whenever we are talking about trade, there would be trade deficits in India. Every year, $100 billion we are having shortfall. And this $100 billion, if this increases, we can eliminate this whatever shortfall we are having here. Now, this balance of payments, what we call in economics as current account deficit. If it is measured in economic terms, we call it as current account deficit. Okay, the BOP crisis, trade deficits or current account deficits, all are one and the same. Okay, talking about the exports are less than the imports, and this would call for deficits. Okay, so agriculture has that potential in making India as an economic exporter, net exporter of goods. Any questions still here? Then forward and backward linkages. So as I told, India has a lot of economic sectors dependent on agriculture itself. If you want other sectors to develop, you have to give a thrust to agriculture. Then India is an internal driven market. That is, majority of our domestic consumption is domestically driven. Majority of our economy is domestic driven. 70% of India economy is domestic driven, unlike China. China, we call it as a export driven economy or export based economy, because China's economy, majority of China's economy, whatever the China's goods, whatever it is producing, they are exported out in the world. But unlike in India, whatever the goods we are producing, we are consuming within India itself. Whatever goods we are producing within, maybe for example, if Tamil Nadu produces some goods, they are consumed in Maharashtra or they are consumed in Karnataka. If Punjab produces some goods, maybe agricultural goods or services, they are consumed within India itself. About 70% of India's GDP is domestic driven. Unlike in China, where majority of their GDP comes from export driven markets. I hope you got the understanding. Now why this becomes important is because if you want to solve the problems of economy, then it becomes very important that internal challenges are solved. That is, until you provide employment to proper employment, or you can say good employment wages to people who are dependent on agriculture, until you reduce or alleviate poverty, until you make agriculture more export, until you make the forward and backward linkages more and robust, you cannot expect India's GDP to grow properly. That is, if there is a thumb rule, if India wants to grow at 6% GDP, if India is targeting a 6% GDP growth, every year it targets some growth. If India wants to target 6% GDP growth, then agriculture has to grow at 4%. Now, without agriculture growing at 4%, this is not achievable. So, okay, this is a simple thumb rule based on different, you can say, studies. They said that until agriculture grows in India, our GDP does not grow. Okay, this is something like a thumb rule you can take. If you want GDP to be grown, agriculture has to grow. Agriculture has to grow. Without agriculture growing, you cannot expect our GDP to grow. In short, economically, GDP or the agricultural growth is everything. Agricultural growth is almost everything in India. That is why Indian economy, even today, we call it as an agrarian economy. Agrarian economy. It is not just because 50% of population is dependent, but also of all these factors. There could be so many other factors also, but because of all these factors, these are the important factors, we call Indian economy even in 2020 as an agrarian economy. I hope you got the understanding of why agriculture is so much important for India, or India's economy. Okay, I hope like you got a lot of points. That is why in exam, in UPSC exam, every year lot of questions are asked in agriculture or asked related to agriculture, because you are going to become an administrator. Until you know the problems which are there in agriculture, you would not be able to fix these problems properly. That is where the questions of agriculture, they can ask in your geography. They will talk about what are the different crops, cropping patterns, the irrigation facilities, what are the different climates, which crops grow in which climate. Okay, so this you discuss in your geography. Okay, it can be asked in your history. Okay, how historically agriculture is there in India, and India is one of the first countries where there are agricultural tools which were found. Okay, which were found. If you see about the Indus Valley civilization, we see that one of the first earliest agricultural tools are found in India. And in fact, India was that country which has shown the world how the agriculture should be made. But the problem is we are not developing with times. We are not developing with times. That is why the agriculture in history becomes important. Now, as I told, how agriculture was there in ancient India, medieval India, and British Raj. How agriculture was there in post-independence from 1950s to 1920. Which areas we developed, which areas we have the challenges remaining. Okay, so when you are preparing, try to prepare in this way. The same agriculture can be asked in your society paper. Okay, the reason is majority of the problems, social problems in India, are very much tied to agriculture, the agricultural mindset of the people. That we'll discuss about that. So societal problems in society paper, you have a society paper, Indian society. You have social justice in GS2 paper. There also this can be asked. Okay, so it can be asked in your GS1, asked in your GS2. Okay, that is polity, which ministries are there, which institutions are there. Okay, if you know, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare is there. We have different institutions which are there. Okay, again, agriculture, state subject or central subject? Anyone? State list.
State list.
Subject, it is a state subject. Agriculture is a state subject. Now, in your polity paper, constitution papers, what constitution talks about agriculture? What are the political developments in agriculture? what are the schemes run by different ministries, how the international best practices are there. Today, we can see about the countries like Israel, countries like a lot of arid countries like Bahrain, Lebanon, they are developing in agriculture. And Scandinavian countries and US countries like US, how developed countries are dealing with agriculture. We can learn a lot from those countries. Okay, it can be asked in your GS2 paper. In GS3 paper, you can expect questions related to economic aspects of agriculture. Okay, how agriculture, you have a separate topic, economy, agriculture. Okay, separate topic in your economy. The same question can be asked in your environment. Okay, climate change. Here I gave some topics. It can be asked in your internal security paper. For example, when we talk about internal security, it should have energy security, it should have food security. This is a very important component in your internal security. Then ethics paper also, it can be asked, and also it can be asked in ethic essay paper. So simply put, agriculture is that subject or that topic which can be asked in any of your papers. So I suggest to have a very comprehensive understanding of agriculture, okay, and try to put all that information you know related to agriculture at one place, because it is asked in multiple papers in multiple ways. So these are like very broad areas. When you are preparing, you should be having a broader knowledge. So any questions still here? Okay, if not, we will move forward. Then on the society, what is the impact of agriculture on society, Indian society? Now, majority of the challenges of Indian society are because of the agricultural mindset. Because of the agricultural mindset. If you want, you can write the agricultural mindset of the people. Now, what exactly this plays a role? Why exactly this plays a role? Is we were discussing, I hope we discussed this one somewhere, the agricultural mindset of the people. The mindset of the farmer is different from that of mindset of workers. Now, can anyone tell me why the mindset of farmer is different from that of mindset of worker, industrial worker? Anyone? In general.
Mind is in general insecure in nature, but the tough worker is some kind of stable life, and they have some kind of rights and provident funds and some kind of
Yeah, that
social
is
security.
true. But what exactly the psychological? This one.
I mean, most of the time, farmers are their own landowners and they earn themselves, whereas workers be paid by their
Okay,
owner.
but what? How does it impact the mindset? Okay, see,
So farmers usually do not get to interact with different sections of society, whereas workers have that opportunity to interact with different people whom they work along, and hence learn from their experiences
very
as
good,
well.
very good. Yeah, very good point. Anything else? Anything else? See, it becomes very important to understand the farmer mindset and a worker mindset. Now, what happens is generally the farmer, though they work hard, okay, I'm not saying they will not work, though they work very hard, most of the times their fruits of labor depend on nature. Like for example, if they if they work very hard, if there are no rains, whatever the efforts they have put are a waste of this one. So in the farming, there is a huge amount of luck factor. I've noticed this. There is a huge amount of luck factor. That means they wait for something to happen. That is why generally the farmers wait, or they are generally more orthodox in their approach, because they pray. Okay, they pray to gods. Okay, for the rain gods, because even if they do their lot of hard work, most of their activities are nature dependent. That is why the luck factor plays a very much important role in the farmer's mindset. Whereas the workers, they know that they can take their destiny in their hands. Most of the times their lives do not depend on their luck. That is why they know that the role of luck is very much less. They put forward their efforts. If there is something wrong, If a machine is not performing well, they go and fix it. And because this is where they believe mostly in their hard work. Here, they do their hard work, but they believe in luck factor. And most of the times, as someone has clearly pointed out, workers belong to different category and they come together. Okay, maybe a worker from North India can come together, South India. A worker from a upper caste can work here. A lower caste can work here. A person belonging to Muslim, Hindu, Christian, they can work together. Now, what happens is people from different fields, from different you can say backgrounds come together and they work. They have a better interaction from other people. Whereas most of the times farmers work in a very isolated manner in their fields. At the best, they will be having interactions with other farmers in their neighborhood. That is the reason the farmers are generally relatively isolated compared to that of workers. And because of this reason, farmers are most of the times they would be with the mindset of, you can say, caste, religion, and language. Whereas workers do not go into these things as much as the farmers do. That is the reason whenever we talk about the worker reforms. Now today, if you see in India, the trade unions are very strong. The workers' trade unions are very strong. Have you noticed this? Whereas the farmers' unions are not as much strong as this one, because the farmers' unions are divided on various lines. Maybe a farmer in Karnataka would never go together with a farmer in Tamil Nadu because they have the language barriers. Whereas the workers would come forward irrespective of their language, religion, or caste barriers. I hope you got the point here. That is where, if you see, the farmers' reforms are very partly happening. In fact, farmers are generally divided in their approaches, whereas union or the trade workers are generally united. That is where, if at all, for example, take the case like a worker has died in Kerala. Okay, a worker has died in Kerala. The workers in West Bengal would protest. Okay, this is something which is very important because the trade unions are very much strong across the country. Now, if something happens to a worker in any part of the world, in any part of the country, the worker unions or trade unions across the world, they take up this issue with utmost caution. Whereas if some farmer suicides in Karnataka, the Tamil Nadu farmer does not care. Okay, or maybe the first thing they can ask is which religion does he belong, which caste does he belong, and because of these reasons, the farmer or agricultural reforms are not happening in India. I hope you got the challenge here and the mindset of the farmers, because they believe in someone else would come and fix their problems, whereas the mindset of the workers, if there is any problem, they work together. That is why in India, if you see, the students unions are very strong. The students unions, like you would have known about the ABVP or the ABVP or other students unions, because they are more coherent. The industrial unions are very strong. Heard of CII, FICCI? Okay, because they are very coherent. Whereas the farmers unions are not as much strong as workers unions or students unions or trade unions. I hope you got the difference between the psychological, how this societal problem would be translated here. Any questions? Okay, that means because the farmers are generally divided, they are not able to look towards their own reforms. Okay, this is one of the challenges which is affecting the social fabric in the country. Now, whatever the social problems in country are there, more or less they are coming from this agricultural mindset of the people. Like lot of superstitions, lot of migrations, suppression of women, lack of education, farmer suicide, development in any parameters like health, education, or income. Almost all these are related to the attitude of farmers. Okay, I hope you got this one, because most of the times the farmers believe that someone else would come and solve their problems, and they are generally divided in their approach. And that is why the farmers unions never took off or never as coherent as that of workers unions or students unions or the trade unions. These are very much coherent. If one student dies in Kerala or Karnataka, the student across the country would protest for him. Have you noticed this? But if there is a farm suicide happening in one part of the state, maybe in the other part of the state they would not care. Maybe if a farmer, a Dalit farmer dies, the upper caste farmers would be happy. Have you noticed this one? Because they are generally divided in their approach. That is why the farm reforms or agricultural reforms are not happening in India. Unlike worker reforms or trade reforms or student reforms or trade union reforms. Okay, again, I'm just relatively comparing. Okay, I'm not saying all the farmers would be having this mindset, but in general, these are the challenges in the country. Majority of the challenges in country are related to agricultural mindset which is there in India, and there is the reason many social problems have their root causes in agriculture. Any questions still here? Okay, if not, we move forward. Then climate change. Okay, you can take a quotation. Agriculture is a cause. Agriculture is a cause as well as a victim of climate change. Agriculture is a cause as well as victim. Yeah, I think there is a lot of disturbance. Please keep your microphones on mute if you don't want to speak. Okay, now agriculture is a cause as well as a victim of climate change. Cause of climate change because majority of the problems in climate change are because of agriculture, not because of industry. Now this might be surprising for many of you. You might think that only industry pollutes the climate. Rather, agriculture also pollutes the climate significantly. For example, you can take down a statistic. 22% of greenhouse gas emissions are from agriculture. of greenhouse gas emissions are from agriculture. Then more than 80% of water resources in India are consumed in irrigation. That means if you want to increase the water use efficiency, if you want to save water, you have to target the irrigation. Okay, majority of the cropping is, you can say, agriculture or irrigation based. Now just to give a perspective, anyone from agricultural background should be able to tell me, for producing 1 kg of rice, any idea how many liters of water is required for irrigation?
Maybe around 1000 liters.
Any other estimate? It requires about 4000 liters of water. 4000 liters, like a tanker. 1 tanker of water is required for producing 1 kg of rice. I hope you got the challenge here. That means the paddy cultivation is a highly water intensive cropping. If you want, you can write down the cultivation of paddy. Is a highly water intensive cropping. Okay, now a lot of crops are highly water intensive, such as paddy. Now you should be having some good statistics with your hand so that you can substantiate your answers. So until you improve the water use efficiency in agriculture, you cannot fix the problems of water in India. When we are talking about, we are having the problems of water scarcity. Okay, states in India are fighting over water. Okay, take Kaveri dispute. Now, the water use efficiency becomes very important. Now, until agricultural practices improve, we cannot tackle the challenges of climate change. Okay, agriculture is a cause of climate change as well as it is a victim of climate change. Okay, why I'm saying it is a victim? Because of climate change, agriculture is becoming a victim. The agricultural productivity is reducing. Okay, the agricultural productivity is reducing. And you can write down the groundwater aquifers, ground water aquifers, ACQI, ACQUI, FERS, ACQUI, FERS, aquifers, groundwater aquifers. That means the water table. For example, if you are seeing this is the ground level. Okay, this let us take this is the ground level. There would be water under the ground. Now, what is happening is over time, this is reducing. The water table is becoming low in India. Now, this is as per the government statistic itself. So you can quote the statistics of government of India. Okay, like Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. You can get all this data in the government website. You can quote like every 3 years, the water table is in India is reducing by 1 meter. But every 3 years, like we can see that it is reducing by 1 meter. For example, earlier you are getting water in 200 meters of depth. Maybe next after 3 years, you'll get only with 201 meters of depth. That means over time we are reducing the water table in India. This is one of the major challenges in India. The water table, it is quantity as well as quality, both are eroding. Then eutrophication. Can anyone tell me what is eutrophication? Heard of it or hearing for the first time?
Stagnation of various minerals at a single point, like ponds and
Yeah, very
other
good.
places.
Any other definition?
Actually, because of pollution, there is a huge growth in algae. So the extra growth is in the lakes in the top layer. So it does not allow sunlight to go inside. So there will be a lot of problem for
Yeah, very
fishes
good,
and all.
very good. Fair enough. Because of the unused fertilizers, because we are being the unused fertilizers in the water bodies, this is leading to huge amounts of growth. The algae, which is changing the biological composition of that particular water body. This is what we call it as eutrophication, because the excessive use of fertilizers, which is leading to eutrophication in India. Then you would have heard of the cropping patterns are changing. Okay, the cropping seasons are changing. The monsoons we are not getting on time, and one reason is because of climate change. Sometimes we are getting huge amounts of waters. Sometimes we are getting less amount of rainfall, and it is because of mostly attributed to the climate changes. Okay, so agriculture is a cause as well as agriculture is a victim for because of climate change, and because of this reason, it is very important in climate change when you are talking about the topics environment and biodiversity. Okay, because many of the forests were cut down because of expansion of agriculture. Okay, because of expansion of agriculture, many forests were cut down. Many wildlife sanctuaries, many animal species became extinct or threatened because of the expansion of agriculture. Okay, any questions still here? Any questions till now? If not, we will move on to the next one, last one. That is strategic importance. Now, when we say strategic importance, so it is important for our national security. Now, how agriculture is important for national security? For example, in 1960s, we were not food sufficient country. When we were in 1950s, 1960s, we used to borrow the food supplies from countries like USA. So if you want, you can write down PL 480. Heard of this PL 480? PL 480. PL 480 was a program under which Indian government was getting the food supplies from USA. Now again, it is a public law 480. Under this, we are getting the food crop supplies from USA. Now, what would happen if you are procuring from other countries? Now, they would make the laws, they would arm twist the small countries in making the laws which would suit their needs. Okay, this is something which is very important. That means if you are dependent on any other country, then there is no such thing like free lunch in economics. Okay, when you buy from or when you get from other country, they are trying to use this as an opportunity to arm twist the country or the policies within your country to suit their needs. Now, this is what our sovereignty was impacted because of that. If today we are saying that we have to be a sovereign country, we should not be influenced by other countries, then food security become important. Okay, food security becomes very much important. Now, if you become like a borrowing country, if you are borrowing from one country or other country, if you always dependent on other country, then your sovereignty gets questioned. Now, if you want to be self-reliant, you should be self-reliant not only in arms and ammunitions, okay, but also in economy. You should be self-reliant in agriculture or energy, and most importantly, the food security is also important. Okay, there should be energy security, there should be food security, there should be economic security. Then only we can say that the sovereignty of India would be there. Okay, so after independence, India relied for most of the food crops, but after the Green Revolution, India became self-sufficient in agriculture. I hope you know that there is something called Green Revolution which happened in India after independence. Now, after this Green Revolution, which happened in 1960s, slowly we became a net exporter of agricultural goods. Now we became self-sufficient in agricultural produce. That is, within India, we are having enough to feed everyone. Now this is something which is very important, because from a country which is dependent on other countries for agricultural crops, we became self-reliant in agriculture, and over time we have increased the food producing capability within India. Now on this front, India also has done a very good job, like the issues of sovereignty. Any questions? Yeah, please.
Sir, sir, in India, government made certain more policies regarding agricultural. So those are consumer biased policies or farmer
No,
biased
when government
policies?
makes the policies, a lot of policies we'll discuss. Maybe all the policies, maybe I'll just have one slide, okay, later. But when the government is making policies, it is not farmer centric or consumer centric, okay, but it is rather, it is centric completely towards the state. Okay, that means whenever the government is making the policies, they would look at the broader grounds, not only one section of society. See, farmers would be there, consumers would be there, then there are a lot of middlemen would be there, then other aspects of economy would be there. So when state is making policies, they have to keep in mind all sections of society. We cannot say it is farmer centric or consumer centric, but we can say that when the government is making any policy, different sections would be related to it. Okay.
So means recently editorial based on agriculture that stated most of the policies are
Okay,
regarding
yeah,
consumer
there could be
biased.
criticism of the government. Always there will be criticism from one section or the other. But again, farmers themselves are consumers. Okay, farmers themselves are consumers, and consumers themselves are farmers also. So we cannot strictly say that these are consumers, these are farmers, because 50% of India's farmers, India's consumers are dependent on, they are into the agriculture itself. So again, the line is very thin. So again, this is more like a criticism of the government rather than having this one. Yeah, there would be biasness towards consumer centric, farmer centric, but most of the times governments make the policies keeping in mind its own political needs. Okay, for example, farm loan waiver. Okay, so it is neither benefiting farmers nor benefiting the government. Rather, it is benefiting the political parties. Okay, so most of the times the decisions which are taken are based on political grounds rather than proving a efficient farmer or government. So it is
Farmers
a
are consumers.
harm for government as well as farmers, but it is a beneficial thing for the political parties. And that is a different story. Okay. Now, coming back to this one, then international norms, lot of international norms you can write. AOA. What is AOA? Anyone heard of this? Okay, Agreement on Agriculture. NFSA. Okay, I'm just giving you the key terms. Peace clause. Peace clause. Okay, try to find out what exactly are this. Okay, what is Agreement on Agriculture? What is National Food Security Act? What is peace clause? Okay, so whenever the international norms are being made, they are made keeping in mind the, you can say, the different countries, different approaches. Now, when NFSA was being made, it was questioned in the WTO, saying that these are market distorting policies of India. Okay, in 2013, when the government started with National Food Security Act, there were questions that should India be allowed to make these policies, and WTO has put forward a lot of restrictions. Okay, again, strategically this becomes very important, because if we are claiming that we are a sovereign country, we can make our own policies, we have to show that we are having enough food for all our population. Then there are a lot of MNCs which are working in the field. Now, I hope, like we discussed earlier, how MNCs are challenging our sovereignty. Okay, there are large MNCs which are working in the field of agriculture. Again, they are coming up with new and new crops. Okay, genetically modified crops, hybrid crops. Okay, so often they are in use for the wrong reasons. Okay, that means the MNCs are playing with people's lives, and most of the times they are getting the support of the government. Now, how far GM crops are beneficial, they are not beneficial, they are harmful, there are different viewpoints here. Again, maybe in your science and technology, you will learn more about GM crops, hybrid crops. Okay, what would be the impact on humans? Now, for time being, you can make a note that these are also playing a key role in agricultural policies in India. And last one, soft power. Can anyone tell me what is soft power? Heard of the word soft power? Or hearing for the first time? Okay, first of all, what is power? When we are talking about politics, politics is all about power.
Authority.
Power is like
Yeah.
getting things done. Soft power means when, let's say, for India, there are a lot of NRIs. So whenever we need some kind of policy, these NRIs will do some kind of lobbying for us. Especially if we take example like nuclear deal and all, these NRIs who are really big players there, I mean, decent enough settled, so they played a big role in getting the policy in
Very
favor
good.
of
On
India.
the lines. On the lines. So,
Having the international relations.
sorry, could you please repeat?
International relations with
Culture,
having
powers,
some
etc.
cultural
Yeah.
powers,
So, what is
etc.
power, first of all? If you want, you can. Authority. Okay. Now, what is authority? Okay. Okay. If you want, you can write down. Power is the ability. Power is the ability to influence the decisions. To influence the decisions of other countries. Other countries. For their own national interests. For their own national interests. Now, why any country is influencing other country? For our own national interests. So, power is the ability of a country to influence the decisions in other countries for their own national interests. This is what power. Now, in international politics, the politics is all about power. Okay, so how well you are able to influence the decisions of other countries. Based on these powers, we classify different powers like superpowers. Heard of superpower? Okay, US is a superpower. Can India be a superpower? There are different questions. There are regional powers. There are major powers. There are the other small powers. There are major powers. There are regional powers. Now, what exactly is superpower? Superpower means they are able to influence the decisions anywhere in the world. Okay, that means they are able to influence the decision anywhere in the world. These are what we call as superpower. Now, for example, Britain was a superpower. Britain was a superpower before World War II. But after World War II, US became the superpower. Now, why we call it as superpower? Because sitting in Washington, they are able to decide who should be the prime minister in Sri Lanka, who should be the president in Maldives, okay, how Afghanistan should make the constitution. Have you noticed this? So these are all when we talk about superpowers. Superpower means they are in their country, they are changing the decisions in Saudi Arabia, they are changing the decisions in Israel. Now, why they are doing this? For their own interests, okay, for the interest of US itself. But they have the ability to influence the decisions in other countries. I hope you got it. This is what we call it as superpower. Okay, when we say regional power, major powers, their influence would be limited to the region itself. For example, we say China is a regional power. China is a regional power. Regional powers means in and across China. It is having some control. For example, take the control like North Korea, Pakistan, Mongolia. In all these countries, Myanmar, China is playing a role. Now in Nepal, Bhutan, okay, it is trying to play a important role. It is able to change the decisions in these countries, influence the decisions in these countries for its own interests. This is what we call it as regional power. Now, India is in the process of becoming a regional power. Okay, India is in the process of becoming a regional power. Till today, it is not a regional power. We are not able to completely influence the countries in the region itself, in the South Asia, because if you see in India, India, even Pakistan does not listen to us. Bangladesh sometimes does not listen to us. Sri Lanka puts forward challenges to India. Now, all these countries, that means we are in the process of becoming a regional power. Okay, from regional power, we can go to major power, and from major power, we can go to superpower. Now, India targets to become a superpower. But here we are. Today, we are here, and this itself is questioned. Is India a regional power or not? Now, before becoming a superpower, you have to become a major power, and before that, you have to become a regional power. We are somewhere here in the process of becoming regional power. I hope you got it. What is power, regional power, major power, superpower? Any questions still here? Okay, now how to influence the decisions? There are two ways. Okay, there are two ways. In simple language, there are two ways. One is stick, one is carrot. Okay, I'm just telling in a very simple language. There are two ways to influence the decisions. You beat someone, okay, or give him some benefits. Now, this what we call it as hard power. This what we call it as soft power. This what we call it as hard power. When we say hard power, it is a military might of the country. Okay, it is a military might of the country, or it is a economic might of the country. Economic might of the country. These two are what we call it as hard power. When we talk about soft power, it is the ability to influence the decisions mostly by attraction. Mostly by attraction, without the use of military or economic power. This is we call it as soft power. Okay, I hope you got it. What is hard power and what is soft power? Any questions till here? Now, this is hard power is mostly by force, and soft power is by attraction. Okay, now they are influencing the other countries' decisions by attracting to yourself. For example, India has some challenges in hard power, like for example, compared to US. Okay, we do not have the strength to match the US military. We do not have the economy to match the Chinese economy. We have some challenges on hard power. That means on military might, on economic might, we have some challenges. That is why India is trying to leverage upon its soft power. That is the idea of attraction. Okay, how to make the countries influenced by saying that India is beneficial for their own interests. This is where India is often using the soft power, like we are talking about historical ties, we are talking about cultural ties. Okay, have you noticed this? Whenever Modi goes to Saudi Arabia, he talks about historic ties, he talks about cultural ties, he talks about Buddhism, he talks about the Islam, Sufism. Okay, why is it all this becomes important? Because we have some challenges in hard power. We are trying to substantiate these gaps or fill these gaps with the help of the soft power. Okay, wherever we have the challenges here. And we are helping the countries like Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bhutan to build their democratic institutions. Like our election commission is helping them. Our ISRO is helping them to launch their satellites. Okay, the technological know-how we are providing. Okay, now why are we doing all this? Election commission providing their expertise in conducting of elections to different countries in Africa, different country in Afghanistan. We started building the parliament building. Okay, have noticed this. Why are we doing all this? Because it is soft power. Because we wanted to increase our soft power approach. I hope you got the points here. Any questions still here? Okay, now why agriculture? How agriculture can be used as soft power? For example, take the case when Nepal had earthquake. India sent a lot of food grains to Nepal. Okay, to build Nepal. Now, if there are some problems in Myanmar, some problems in Afghanistan, some problems in Sri Lanka, then they look towards India for help. Now, India is most of the times helping them. This is enhancing India's soft power. That is what we call it as soft power. This, if you want to do this one, first of all, you should be having enough food grains, okay, with you. This is where the agriculture is important. So simply put, agriculture is important from economic, political, social, climate change, and your strategic importance. I hope I gave you a lot of points here. You can add any more points, but you should be very objective in your preparation. When you're preparing a topic like agriculture, just one slide or maybe half page, you covered all these points. But you should be in a position to write 200 words on each of these. Okay, you should reach to a level that are you able to write 200 words only on this particular issue, only on this particular issue. Now if you are in the able to write 200 words on each of these issues, you are on the right track of your preparation. Otherwise you have to go back and study. Okay, I just gave you the guideline how to prepare for topics like agriculture. Okay, maybe you can develop your own way of preparing, but covering topics like a very broad topics, you should have knowledge, good knowledge of Indian economy, good knowledge of Indian society, good knowledge of climate change, good knowledge of international relations. Then only you'll be able to write a 360-degree point of view for your answers. So what UPSC expects is this 360-degree point of view. Okay, not 90-degree or 180-degree. It expects you to be like an all-rounder. When you're writing your answers, this should be reflected. Okay, this should be reflected. That is, you are talking about constitution, you are talking about economy, you are talking about society, you are talking about climate change, you are able to interlink the international relations. This is where they expect your answers to be more and more comprehensive, not from one aspect or other aspect. It should be complete. Okay, any questions still here? Okay, I hope by now you have got some understanding about why agriculture is so much important for India and what are the major achievements of India in agriculture and what are the major challenges. Okay, so with this we will move to the next aspect of our discussion in agriculture. If this is very clear, we will go to the please go ahead.
Sir, I have one doubt. Actually, as per recent policy, the government allowed 10% ethanol blending in petrol and all. My doubt is like, I mean, it is produced usually from sugarcane juice. So my doubt is, I mean, if these are produced in mass, like let's say some 5 years of requirement, okay, will it be able to stored or will it get spoiled in the middle? Like since it is organic compounds. If it can be stored for a long time, then whatever we need we can produce, and whatever extra land we have we can produce.
I don't have any knowledge on that. I am not the I am not the correct person you're asking.
Okay, no.
Okay, I am not sure. Okay, so maybe you can check with your science and technology or maybe geography faculty or climate change or environment biology. I'm not really aware of that. Maybe if I get some source or something, I'll share on that. But I have, very little knowledge on EBP. There is a program. Yeah, I know that there is a EBP, ethanol blending of petrol, but I don't have much thoughts on that. Biofuels and all. Okay, I don't think much more. Okay. Any other questions or any doubts you have till here? If not, we'll move forward. Now, how to prepare? Again, the question remains how to prepare for agriculture. Okay, how to prepare for agriculture. Now, what I suggest is make a list of all backward linkages. All backward linkages. Okay, like seeds, irrigation, fertilizers, pesticides, machinery, new technologies. Add, make a list of all forward linkages like this. Then try to be in a position to write 200 words on each of this. Only 200 words, not more than that. This is what, like 10 marker. If a question comes on Indian or the challenges in fertilizer industry, you should be able to write 200 words. Now, quickly, maybe for example, just for your understanding. Okay, so I hope like you know what is required for agriculture. You require water, you require land, you require seeds, you require money, credit. Now, in almost all these things, there were some achievements. There are some challenges. Make a list like this. Okay, for example, I'll just give you a list of how to prepare for these topics. If you are preparing for a topics like Indian agriculture. Now, yeah, just a minute. Yeah, please.
Sir,
Yeah, please go ahead.
sir, I have a doubt. Sir, government is providing minimum support price for certain food crops. What if farmers started growing those products only rather than growing other products just because of
Yeah,
availing
we'll,
this
we'll
minimum
discuss about
support
that.
price?
Maybe, yeah, good question, because the government provides MSP not to all the goods, but only to, not to all the commodities, but only to, I think 23 commodities are covered under MSP. 22? 22, yeah, 22,
22
or yeah, I
commodities are
do
under
have a slide for that.
MSP, sir.
I just wanted to discuss maybe in the forward linkages in the market. So yeah, we'll discuss upon that. Good question, very valid question. Yeah, any other questions or any other thoughts you have before we move on to the topic? Okay, now how to prepare for each of these backward linkages. Now what I suggest is make a list of these topics. Now for each of these topics there will be some developments which are there. Now I'll just give you the gist how to prepare. So only the keywords I'm going to give you. If you want, you can make a note. These are very much important when you are preparing for your exam. Okay, so I can just give you an idea how to prepare. Now seeds, you can write few points related to seeds. Few points related to seeds which are there in yours. This would be helpful in your current affairs preparation also. Okay, the important points related to seeds you can write down. Okay, if you know, it is completely fine. If you are hearing for the first time, make a note and try to find it out. You can write down. Okay, which is the organization which certifies seeds in India? Which institution? Any? Someone from farming background should be knowing that. Okay, which organization produces seeds in India? National Seed
National Seed
Corporation.
Corporation.
They develop foundation seeds. Partly correct. They develop foundation seeds. Okay, there is National Seed Corporation, then state SFCs, state seed corporations, SSCs. They develop the foundation seeds. But who would develop the breeder seeds? Heard of this one? The words breeder seeds, foundation seeds, certified seeds. Okay, if you have not heard, make a list of this. Okay, I'm just going to give you some keywords how to prepare for the topics like agriculture, because these are very huge, very broad topics. Okay, you can make a note. Breeder seeds, foundation seeds, certified seeds. breeder seeds, foundation seeds, and certified seeds. Anyone who develops the breeder seeds? Or who gives the certification? It is an organization called ICAR. ICAR, a very important organization when you are talking about agriculture. Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Indian Council of Agricultural Research, ICAR. Indian Council of Agricultural Research. Then you can write down about seed replacement rate, seed replacement rate, and varietal replacement rate. Okay, I'm just giving you keywords. Okay, so just for your understanding, seed replacement rate, BRR, SRR, VRR, varietal replacement rate, varietal replacement rate. Then global seed vault, global seed vault, global seed vault. Can anyone tell me where is global seed? What is global seed vault? Doomsday, yeah.
Assuming a
Very
doomsday,
good.
like
Very good.
everything is wrong,
Very good. That means
go
if,
wrong.
for example,
Some seeds
if there
left
is a
over.
disaster, like a man-made disaster or a natural disaster, now the seeds from different countries are procured and they kept at a one single place. This is what, this is there. Yeah, Svalbard. Very good. Very good. Svalbard is a place. Where is it? Any idea? Which country? Svalbard. Scandinavian country. It's in Norway. It's in Norway.
Some
Very good.
Scandinavian
Yeah, very
country,
good.
I think.
Like in Svalbard, there is a seed vault. Okay, and in India also there is a seed vault at Changla. I think recently they have made this one. Okay, recently they have made this one. This is at Changla, Ladakh. Okay, again see the map in Ladakh. Where exactly is it located? So you'll get an idea. Now, whenever you see the new name like Svalbard, if you do not know where it is, try to take the map and try to find it out. Now, these can be asked in your prelims exam. See, these can be asked in your prelims exam. All these are the key terms, or when you're writing your mains, you can substantiate your answers with all this. Okay, regarding the seats. So we have developed a doomsday vault where it is developed by DRDO. Okay, Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO, for protecting these ones. Then you can read about National Seed Policy 2002, National Seed Policy 2002, and New Policy on Seed Development, New Policy on Seed Development, New Policy of Seed Development. Then okay, see, one challenge India faces is many of the farmers are located in hinterlands, in remote places. Now, how to supply the certified seeds to them? How to supply the certified seeds to them? Because majority of the farmers does not have certified seeds to produce. That is why they use their own seeds. This is measured by a parameter called seed replacement rate. Okay, seed replacement rate. Now, why this is important? Because this certified seeds reaching to the farmers is very difficult. Now, recently, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmer Welfare came up with a new scheme for making the certified seeds available to the farmers. Can anyone tell me what is the scheme to make the certified seeds available to the farmers? It is called Krishi Dak. If you want, you can write KRISHI, Krishi Dak. What is Krishi means? Farmers, agriculture.
Farmers.
What is Dak means? Post. I think this is clear.
Some kind of
That
post
means
office.
they are using post office network which is there in India. Now you can see that the post offices are there across India, even in the remotest corner of India. Now they are using post offices to supply the agricultural certified seeds. So today post offices are almost, you can say, extinct. They are not being used now. This would be giving a huge business opportunity to the post offices also, and the huge postal network which India has can be used for this one. Now this is a good idea of collaboration. Okay, like the agricultural ministry is tying up with the postal ministry in ensuring that the certified seeds would be available to the farmers living in remote part of the country. I hope you got the point. So sometimes in exam prelims you can get the questions, direct questions like this, or in mains when you're writing your answers you can substantiate what are the steps taken by government of India regarding the seeds. So if you write your answers with respect to these things, your answers would be more and more valid. Okay, like you can talk about breeder seeds, foundation seeds, certified seeds, SRR, VRR, Global Seed Vault, Indian Seed Vault, Krishi Dak, SARC Seed Bank, Enhanced Seed Research, then new policy on seed development, all this when you are talking about seeds itself. Now, in the similar lines, I expect you to do the work on almost all these backward linkages and forward linkages. Okay, again, only on seeds you should be able to write 200 words. These 200 words, how to write, I gave you the idea. Okay, like again, you have to write with the keywords. You have to write with the institutions. You have to write with the government schemes. Now, without writing all this, your answers would be not, you can say, complete. So I just gave you the direction to prepare. Now it is completely up to you. How would you prepare? Any questions still here? Okay, maybe in your economy class you learn more and more about the agriculture, fertilizer industry, machinery industry. Okay, if you want quickly I can give you some keywords in other backward linkages, or you wanted to deal in your geography and economy class, it's also completely fine. Either way you are comfortable with. If you want, I can quickly give some keywords which you can prepare for time being. You want me to do, or it's okay? You can do in your economy and geography in broader detail. Okay, I'll take it as a no. Okay, we'll move forward. Then coming to, this is in the pre-harvest. Then in post-harvest, related to procurement, storage, that is what we call it as forward linkages, post-harvest. Now in post-harvest I'll give some keywords. Post-harvest I'll give you some keywords. If you know this, so we are writing here. I'll give some keywords, make a list of all the keywords, then try to find it out. You can write down APMC, then ECA 1955, ECA 1955, that is Essential Commodities Act 1955. Essential Commodities Act 1955. Then Food Corporation of India, Food Corporation of India. Then Food Processing Sector in India, Food Processing Sector in India. Okay, here you can mention about the Krishi Sampada Yojana, okay, of the government. Then MSP, minimum support price, MSP, minimum support price. NAM, okay, not non-alignment movement. It is National Agricultural Markets, National Agricultural Markets. NFSA, National Food Security Act, National Food Security Act. And PDS, Public Distribution System, Public Distribution System. Public Distribution System. Okay, now someone has asked about MSP. Okay, what exactly is the MSP? Okay, MSP, and what is the relation of this? Now, I'll show one slide which is very important to understand what is MSP. Okay, so I hope like you are able to see this one. Okay, if you want, take a screenshot. Very important slide to understand the how they are reaching from farmers to beneficiaries. If you want, make a note of this or list out or take a screenshot of this. Now, farmers have two opportunities. Now, two options. Whenever the farmers produce the crops, now they have two options. One, they can sell it in the market at the market price. Market. These markets, what we call it as APMCs, Agricultural Produce Market Committees, or the farmers can sell to Food Corporation of India. Now, what is this MSP? MSP is like, you can say, a safety net for farmers. Now, what would happen is, for example, let us take if farmers have produced maybe rice. Let us take they have produced rice. Now, the price of rice, let us take, it is something like 2000 rupees. Let us take maybe again a quintal of rice is 2000 rupees at market. 2000 rupees at market. Now, because of some market fluctuations, now the farmers would have incurred a cost of, let us take 1500 rupees in producing 1 quintal of rice. Now, if they sell in market, they will get 2000. But because of some disruptions, let us take this market prices have dropped to 1000 rupees. Now, the farmers would be at loss. To protect the farmers from this loss, there would be some minimum support price, which would be declared by the union government. This is what we call it as MSP, minimum support price. They will say that we are going to give you some price, not as much as market price. In general, you can sell in the market, but if you have excess crops, you are unable to sell in market due to different reasons. Maybe sometimes the APMCs could be very far away, okay, or sometimes if the farmers feel that the market prices are very less due to any reason, due to excessive crops in the region, then it would have some support, as the name suggests, minimum support price, MSP, minimum support price. This would be declared by the union government, so they can sell it in the Food Corporation of India. This procurement is done at the central government agencies called Food Corporation of India. Now, what Food Corporation of India would do with this much of produce it is procuring? What it will do is, it will give to the state governments at a price called CIP, Central Issue Price. At a price, what we call it as CIP, it will issue to the state governments. Now, these state governments give to a shops called ration shops or fair price shops. Now, this is what we call it as the PDS system, public distribution system. Now, I hope you got the cycle here. From farmers, it will go to FCA godowns. From FCA godowns, it will go to the state governments. State governments, it will go to the fair price shops. From fair price shops, it would go to the intended beneficiaries who are covered under the PDS programs of state or who are covered under the NFSA program, National Food Security Act program. To the intended beneficiaries, it would go. Okay, is it clear or any questions till here? Okay, till here, if it is clear, yeah, please.
Sir, what about market intervention schemes, sir?
Any example of market?
It is implemented by state government when commodities in the event of
what would happen?
fall in
What
the
would happen
market
is,
price.
this is MSP declared by center. In addition to this, state governments can add some benefit to this one. For example, if the state union government says 1500 rupees is MSP, the state governments can declare an additional price over and above MSP. Like state governments can say that I am going to give 500 rupees more for each quintal of rice procured. This burden has to be borne by the particular state government. Is this what you're asking? This is what we call it as, yeah. Now we will see this is an, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Actually, I missed. What she's saying is like market intervention in case vegetables and fruits prices goes
No,
down.
we don't have
Actually,
that. We
government,
don't
some
have
state
that.
governments use
See,
some
we
special
have
subsidies.
only, let me be very clear here. See, what, okay, I'll ask a simple question. Now, can farmers sell their produce in markets, open markets? So there are open markets. There is APMC yards, agricultural
Earlier,
produce market
it's no.
company
I
yards.
think now it is
They can
better.
sell to FCA. Can farmers sell in open markets? Simple question.
Earlier, no, but now I
Okay.
think they have
In
changed
short,
something and they are
farmers
allowing
are not
contract
allowed to
farming
sell
and all.
in open markets. Now, why they were not allowed to sell in open markets? This is as per the APMC Act. APMC Act. Now, why they were not allowed to sell in open markets? Because most of the times the farmers are cheated because of the traders. And this is to prevent the farmers from what they call it as distress selling. Distress selling. Have you seen movies in 1950s, 1960s? Okay, if you see the movies of 1950s, 1960s, who are the heroes? The farmers are the heroes. Who are the villains? The zemindars, the local zemindars are the villains. What they'll do? When the farmers get the crop, they would come to their farm and take all the produce at a very cheap price. Have you noticed this? Now, why this is happening? To prevent this kind of zemindars taking over all the farm produce, the government has introduced that farmers are not allowed to sell anywhere except in APMC yards, where there would be market officials, government officials would be there, farmers would be there, and the buyers would be there. That is, only in the presence of government they have to sell. This is what we call it as APMC yards. But over time, what happened is the sellers and the government officials started nexus. This unholy nexus started happening between the sellers, sorry, between the buyers and government officials. Government officials. They started exploiting the farmers. That is, the APMC, the prices are decided by the state government. Now, this is where you can see that many states, the vegetables or goods are procured at 2 rupees per kg. I've noticed in news like tomatoes are procured at 2 rupees per kg in APMC yards, whereas they are being sold at 80 rupees in consumer market. That is, neither farmer is benefiting nor consumer is benefiting. Who is benefiting? The buyers. The middleman is benefiting in between. Now, the APMC Act has been intended for a good reason, because to prevent farmers from distress selling. But the same APMC Acts are today used by, you can say, the corrupt politicians and bureaucrats to arm twist the farmers to sell their produce at a very cheap price. In fact, in markets they are sold at very high price. So neither the consumer nor the farmers are benefiting. It is rather the middleman who is benefiting. I hope you got the problem here. The APMC. So some states gave an exemption because agriculture is a state subject. Some states gave an exemption. If you want, you can write down which states gave an exemption. Punjab, Haryana. Okay, I think it did not come to you. Okay, sorry, I kept it in the private chat. Let me put it in the group chat. I don't think I can put it in the group chat. Yeah, you can make a note. I hope it is visible, right? This one, Apni Mandi in Punjab and Haryana. In Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, there are some states which gave some exceptions to the farmers, that some produce can be sold in the markets. Okay, not all produce, some produce like perishables, fruits, vegetables, they can sell in the markets. But more or less, we have this APMC Act. Now, farmers have two options only. One, either they can sell in APMC yards or in FCA godowns. Now, what happened is, okay, so I hope you got the point here. APMC was intended for a good reason, but they are being today used to harass the same farmers. The same thing happened with the MSP also. MSP is to support the farmers in the case of in the case of you can say the prices falling beyond the below the market values. Now what happened is whenever there is in elections, whenever there are elections, let us take the quintal of rice is 2000 rupees. The farmer has incurred an expense of 1500 rupees. How much MSP should be? Minimum support price at least 1500, maybe if not 1700 rupees to protect the farmer. But what happens if MSP becomes 2500? What would happen? Now farmers have two options. One is APMC, that is market. One is in FCA godown where they are getting 2500. Which one farmers would go? Obviously they will go to FCA. Now what is the problem with this is FCA is procuring the stock which is much more than its godown capacity. Okay, which is much more than whatever it can store. Now what is the problem with this particular, you can say, procuring so much of amounts is in markets we are having shortages. That means whatever the procurement we are doing here, we are having huge amounts of shortages in the markets. Okay, we have huge amounts of shortages in the market, and this would also leading to you can see one photograph of FCA godown. This is not one simple photograph. This is something which is happening across the country. That is, FCA is procuring so much of grains because the government is saying that MSP is high, much more than its godown capacity, and because of this, most of the grains, in any idea how much of grains are wasted in India? Approximate food grains. If FCA procures 100 metric tons of food grains, any idea how much is wasted? 50% is wasted. Now whatever the FCA procures 50% is wasted because we are not able to save these food grains properly. Now this is something which is very important for reformation of FCA. So always we talk about reforming FCA because 50% of whatever the FCA is procuring is just wasted. So see the situation. On one side, people are not having food to eat. On other side, we are wasting 50% of the food which is ever procured by government. Now this is one of the major challenges in India. That is where a lot of commissions were appointed. But because of the political scenarios, we can see that whenever there are elections, you can see there is a rise in MSP. And what happens during the rise in MSP is the market shortages happen because farmers are not selling in the markets, rather they are selling all their in FCA. Again, FCA is also a poor organization. It does not know what to do. It has to procure because government has said like that. And because of these ones, because of the political issues coming in MSP, then we can see that huge amounts of food grains are being wasted. Not the consumers, neither the farmers are benefiting from this. I hope you got the challenges in MSP. Now we can see this MSP is being set for not for all crops but for majority of the crops like paddy, rice and wheat. Rice and wheat are the two major crops where MSP is set. And these are the two major crops where most of it is wasted also. Okay, now what is more important is what are the reforms suggested by different committees and commissions for reformation of MSP. Okay, these become very much important. This is what you can see. Whenever there is a election time, there is an MSP rise. This bonus would be announced by the state governments. As I told, MSP, this one would be announced by which organization in India announces MSP? It is CACP. It is, if you want, you can write it down. CACP. CACP. Under Ministry of Agriculture. Yeah.
Sir. Sir,
Yes,
MSP
yeah.
is announced by CACP and procured and
MSP
stored
is
by
recommended again.
FCI, right?
Yeah. One more thing, you should be very cautious. MSP is recommended by CACP. You can underline the word recommended. MSP is recommended by CACP and fixed by government. This is something very important. These bodies can only recommend to the government. They cannot do that. Ultimate implementation is by government.
So announces
No.
and
Announcement is not
recommended
there.
by
Only
CACP
recommended by
and
CACP
the price is
and
set by
fixed by
government.
government. And by fixed by government. That is
Amount
MSP
is
is
fixed by government, sir.
Fixed by government, union government, and the state bonus would be declared by the state governments. Okay, now MSP itself is market distorting. MSP itself is market distorting because if the government procures more, if the government announces MSP more, then there would be food grain shortage in markets, in open markets. Okay, again MSP is for a good reason. What is the purpose of MSP? To protect farmers. To protect farmers so that they will have some kind of price guarantee. Okay, to make agriculture more and more productive. This is the purpose of MSP. At the same time, what is the benefit for consumers with MSP? Because they would be having the PDS. Under PDS, they'll be getting the food grains at a very cheap price. Now, the issue of MSP is very good, but the way it is being implemented, there is a huge amount of politics which are involved in this MSP. Now, whenever there is an election time, the government announces more and more MSP. And more MSP means more and more wastage in FCA godowns, because FCA godowns are designed only for certain amount. For example, FCA godown is designed for 25 metric ton. If 25 million metric ton, if the government procures 100 million metric ton, then definitely there would be wastages. Definitely there will be wastages. This is where we have to understand and what Niti Aayog has suggested. What Niti Aayog has suggested. Can anyone tell me what Niti Aayog has suggested recently related to MSP? Heard of this MSP change in MSP? Niti Aayog has suggested that MSP Niti Aayog suggested that MSP should be phased out and there shall be price deficiency payment system. And there shall be price deficiency payment system. Now all these you can write in your answers. When you're writing your answers, you can quote the CACP, you can quote the various committees and commissions which are there for reforming FCI, like Ramesh Chand panel, okay, Ramesh Chand panels, and price deficiency payment system when prices fall below MSP. Then there is one more important panel called Shanta Kumar committee. Okay, all this would give weightage to your answers. All these would give weightage to your answers. Okay, you can quote Ramesh Chand panel, Shanta Kumar panel, you can quote Niti Aayog data. Now, if you quote all this data, you'll get more and more weightage to your answers. So I hope it's clear till here. This particular slide should be clear. Any questions till here? Okay, that means what we are having the laws, they are different, and what is happening at the ground level, they are different. Now APMC yard was designed for a good reason. What is the purpose of APMC yard? So that farmers would not have distress selling. But what is happening at the ground level? It is used to harass the same farmers by giving them little support. Now, the same issues are there in the farmer loans, farm loans. In credit, there are problems. Okay, in loans, there are problems. In fertilizers, there are problems. In seeds, there are problems. Now, media most of the times highlights only the problems. So never only go with media reports, always go with government's reports also. Because here you'll get lot of negative points, but here you'll get lot of positive points. So when you go with negative reports, I mean negative only, so you should have this one. With respect to this one, you should also have this one, because you are going to be part of government. You are also going to be part of government. So you should understand what is government viewpoint, and whenever you are criticizing government or criticizing the government's role, you have to criticize with respect to committee and commission's reports. You have to criticize with respect to other government agencies. Like if Supreme Court has said something, if High Courts have said something, if National Human Rights Commission have said something, then you can quote all these organizations when you are criticizing the government. These would be much more valid criticisms, rather than you write the criticisms on your own. Or if you see good scholars, when they write in newspapers like Hindu, Indian Express, the way they criticize government, it is more like a constructive criticism. Constructive criticism. This should be something more important in your exam. Your answer should be criticizing the government, but this criticism should not be like without any basis. It should be very objective, and it should be having a constructive criticism. That means a good positive feedback you have to give. Okay, you need not write only positives about the government, but you should not also write the negative things when you are writing your answers. Okay, now even despite all this, you can see the farmers of India, they remain, you can say the land possession in India or the income levels in India are very less, and this is leading to the distress in farming, the farm suicides at the worst case. Now this is something very shameful for a country like India, which is traditionally dependent on farming, and you can see many governmental agencies are there working for that. We can see a number of schemes run by government, but despite that there are lot of farm suicides which are happening in India. Now what is the reason for happening this, and what is the solution for this? Here you can write about the Niti Aayog report on doubling farmers income. Niti Aayog report on doubling farmers income. Okay, now the doubling farmers income, I'll give you one slide. Take a screenshot and try to understand what exactly is the doubling farmers income on this one. Okay, so this would give you a lot of data to write in your exams. Okay, I'll just give you one more slide. Okay, take this screenshot of this slide. Now what Niti Aayog suggested? Doubling farmers income. So when you're writing the answers, you should be very objective, as I told. Okay, so this would give a lot of facts to you. Try to find out what Niti Aayog has said in raising productivity. Okay, how to raise productivity. When you're writing your answers, you can quote all these statistics. Rising productivity, like high value commodity, look at horticulture. Okay, changes in seed, changes in irrigation, the proposals for MSP, animal husbandry, technology, use of pesticides, use of urban forestry. All this you can write in raising productivity. Then remunerative price, it talked about market reforms and MSP reforms. Some MSP reforms we were discussing about. Challenges in MSP, what are the MSP reforms? Then it talked about relief measures, a complete changing in insurance sector, a complete changing in the credit lending sector. It should be very much required. Then in land reforms, talked about land record digitalization, then land leasing reforms and tenancy reforms. So in short, take a screenshot of this one and try to write 200 words about each of these. You'll get lot of points to write in your exam. Okay, so this would be very much helpful in your answer writing practice. Now, if you prepare in the same way, agricultural sector, industry sector and services sector, you are more or less done with your economy class. Okay, so but you should be in a position, as I told, to write 200 words on each of these parameters. Then you can say that you are more closer to the needs of the examination. Okay, any questions still here? Okay, if you don't have any questions, then maybe I can just give you an idea to prepare for industry sector in India or manufacturing sector in India after independence. Any questions again? If you have any questions, we can have a discussion. Now, what happened to Indian economy after independence? What are the in the same way, in the agricultural sector, the secondary sector also has its own set of achievements, at the same time its own set of challenges. So just make a note of this. Different sectors of Indian economy. Different sectors of Indian economy. Different sectors of Indian economy. Primary sector, secondary, tertiary, quaternary and quinary. Quaternary and quinary. Primary sector means which are related to directly extracting the raw material from nature. Okay, like agriculture, mining, they come under primary sector. Now we discussed something about agriculture sector. In the same way, you have to prepare for mining sector. Okay, then manufacturing sector, then services sector, quaternary sector and quinary sector. Quaternary means which are related to information and environmental technology. Okay, complex processing handling. Then quinary sector means the high level decision makings. High level decision makings. Like IAS officers, okay, or other institutions which are at the high level responsible for a overall broader decision making. So you are going to be part of this quinary sector, the top sector of India. So because you are going to be here, you should be having good knowledge of all other sectors. Okay, different sectors. So what I suggest is, in the same way we covered agriculture, you cover different other sectors, mining sector and real estate sector or manufacturing sector, then services sector, then R&D sector. Okay, so if you cover this way, you are more closer to the needs of examination. Okay, more closer to the needs of examination. Now, as I told, there are a lot of successes of India. At the same time, the challenges remain. Many challenges remain. One of the challenges we often see that India is compared with its neighbors. Now, when India became independent, not only India, but also countries like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Maldives, China, almost all countries started their journey at the same time in 1950s. In 1950s. Now, what is the irony is, the countries which are having, of all these countries, only India has lot of natural resources. And everyone expected that India would outperform all other countries, including China. Because as I told, compared to China, India is having much more natural advantage. Now they believe that India would overtake China, but it did not happen. It happened the other way. Now, if you see small countries, okay, leave large countries like China. Even if you see small countries, like these four countries are what we call it as Asian tigers. Like take the countries like Japan, take the countries like South Korea, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Singapore. Now, if you see, all these had similar challenges like India. They were under colonialism for 200 years. They were having multiple challenges internally. External challenges are almost common for India and plus other countries. Now, despite all these challenges, what we can see is these countries have significantly progressed. A lot of progress has happened to these countries, and India is nowhere here. Can you tell me what is the GDP of India today? $2.7 trillion or $2,600 billion, approximately $2,700 billion.
$2.7 billion.
Now, GDP per capita of India, $2,000. Now, if you see GDP per capita of any country in the neighborhood,
$2,000.
at least these small countries, we can see that countries like Hong Kong, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, it is something like $80,000. Imagine where we are and where they are. I hope you got the comparison. Now, compare, if we are not comparing only with Singapore, even if you compare with countries like Bangladesh, India is still not, or not on social parameters. If you see education wise, if you see gender parity wise, if you see health indices wise, many see that Bangladesh is a very small country with huge amount of density, with less natural resources. Okay, lot of internal challenges, but countries like Bangladesh also has overtaken India in development terms. This is where the questions remain. Why India is not able to fully realize the potential? I'm not saying.
Sir, but per capita income of Pakistan
Yeah.
or
So not
Bangladesh are
only on economy,
also,
but if you see the overall
around
HDI,
25% less than that
Human
of
Development
India.
Indices. When we talk about Human Development Indices, it covers 3 parameters. Can anyone tell me what are the 3 parameters HDI covers? Yeah, health, education, and standard of living. Now, if you take
Health,
HDA
education,
as a
standard
whole,
of living.
or if you take the standard of living, or sorry, if maybe in one sector we are leading compared to Bangladesh and Pakistan, but most of the other sectors like education, health, they are faring well than that of India. Okay, and again, not only countries like these things, countries like Myanmar, Vietnam, Cambodia, they are much above us. Countries like Malaysia are also much developed than us, and no comparison with China, no comparison with small countries. So in short, even if you take small countries or large countries, they are performing well forward. And take countries like Pakistan and Bangladesh, even despite having lot of political challenges on economic front, they are not worse. They are not very lagging behind India. Okay, they can catch up India at any time. But in other parameters, they are moving forward. This is where the question comes. Where was that challenge? Where are their weaknesses? Or which are the areas we would have improved or we can still improve? Now, one area which is very evident, as I told, that is the secondary sector or manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sector. Okay, so in the same way, try to cover the manufacturing sector the way we covered in this agriculture sector. But when you are writing your answers, write down the achievements of India and write down the places where we would have had performed much better. Okay, you'll get lot of points when you're writing your answers. Any questions till here? I hope I gave you lot of points till now. Any other questions till here? Maybe in next class we'll try to recap, wind up, and if you have any other questions, do let me know. We will cover in the next class, but in next class we will discuss and close the post-independent history. I don't think much we have in post-independent history left apart from this. So let me know if you have any questions, any concerns, any feedback till now. But I'm not getting the assignments. Okay, I'll take some time to correct your assignments and send it back if you want to send it back. Okay, only 1 or 2 students I'm getting the assignments. But I suggest like every one of you submit their assignments. Okay, that would be really helpful. Any questions again? If not, we'll close for today. We'll wind up for today. Okay, thank you. Thank you all for joining. Have a good week ahead.